This week on the podcast, Carrie and I are joined by a special guest, and we're talking all things about her Disney cookbook. But wait, this is not a cookbook about the park food. You're going to want to hear this. Every Disney fan is going to want to hear the behind the scenes that we got from this author. Stay tuned to hear more. You're listening to the Pixie Dust Fan Podcast. Hi, I'm Francine.
And I'm Carrie.
We're two best friends who can't stop talking, usually about Disney stuff.
Sometimes we have fascinating guests, and sometimes it's just us. But it's always positive and fun.
We're happy to have you join our chat. Thanks for listening, and let's get started. Hello, Carrie.
Hey buddy.
Hey, buddy. How's it going?
Buddy, old pal, buddy, whatever, I don't know. I'm here.
I'm here
Present.
too. Present and accounted for.
Yes.
Carrie, so last week we were just the two of us, for our episode. But this week, we have a guest. So we'd like to mix it up. We don't like to have like too many guests back to back to back to back. And then we don't want to be just the two of us back to back to back to back because people, maybe
a little much.
Sometimes it's just a little much, too much, Carrie and Fran. So anyway, this week we have a guest, and we're going to be chatting with her. And it's funny. Like I've seen her, I've heard of her, and I'm really excited to get a chance to talk to her. Like she's an author. Like she's written a bunch of books about Disney stuff, and she's in the Disney community, and she's kind of fun.
She is, and her name is Kimberley Bouchard.
Kimberley, you just wanted to say her name? Kimberley Bouchard.
Bouchard.
Yes. So do you want to bring her in, Carrie? Let's get started. Kimberley, welcome to the Pixie Dust Fan Podcast. We are so excited to have you here.
I am super excited to be here. Thank you.
We're so excited to talk about your book and the cookbook and like your whole series. But before we get started, we want to just talk a little bit about you. So I was doing a little digging online and I found out that you are Canadian, just like Carrie and I.
Yes, I am. I know a lot of people actually don't realize that actually until maybe I say about or some sorry, those kind of words. Then they kind of figure out that I'm not quite from south of the border. But we immigrated here 11 years ago. Had no idea that was where my life was going to lead me. Love it. I'm proud Canadian and a proud American to be. I get my dual citizenship, our whole family, by the end of the year. So it's and I have to say that it's very few podcasters that I ever get to be interviewed by that are in Canada. So this is a real sweet
That's
treat.
awesome. Hey, that's great.
It's great, eh?
It is, eh?
Now, what part of Canada are you from?
Well, I was born in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, but I grew up in Alberta and I've lived in Victoria and Quebec City as well. But when we moved here, we moved from Alberta.
That's so awesome. I was pleasant. I was going through and I was like, oh my goodness, she's Canadian.
Yeah. I put that on the back of all my books because I think it's important. It's important to me anyways, that people know that and that I do reside in the US and very happily because, I have to tell you that I was a world traveler anyways, because my kids were world level Irish dancers. And so we traveled for 15 years competing and performing. And it's wonderful. But I'll tell you, when you have roots in your country, you become very patriotic when you're out of it. And but I have to also say that I don't know about you guys going to the different pavilions, the American theater and the Hall of Presidents and stuff. But every time I come out of there, I'm like in tears. I'm a proud American. And every time I come out of the Canadian pavilion, I'm in tears. Well, actually, I'm in tears during the whole show. And I don't know if people understand quite what it means to be in that, show and seeing your homeland when you live in the US. But I am just so grateful, and I love both my countries. Both of my countries are my home.
Oh, that's so fantastic. Oh, so why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got into Disney? Like, where did your love affair of Disney start?
Yeah. Well, like everybody, I think we watched Wonderful World of Disney on Sunday nights, right? After supper or during supper. And that was really fantastic for me. I mean, we didn't have very many channels growing up. In Canada, at least we didn't have very many. I think we were lucky to have 2 or 3, but or 1. And so that was a real special treat. And then, I got to go to Disneyland for the first time when I was 12 years old, and we drove there, and that castle just blew my mind, because as a little girl, you see this and you don't realize that, oh my gosh, there is an actual place that this castle exists. And so I did, a few trips to Disneyland, once only with my whole family. And then Walt Disney World, my husband introduced me to Walt Disney World, where he had been, he'd grown up in Walt Disney World pretty much as a French Canadian. I mean, it was a direct shot to Orlando. And so, that became our go-to park. But then living in Seattle, I have both those parks on my radar all the time. I go frequently, but Orlando is our main park now, because we actually have a little place there
nice.
that we got a year ago, which then 6 weeks ago, we decided to move permanently to Orlando. So I'm grateful we have our little vacation, and we'll land there, and then we'll buy, the house that we want to buy. But moving closer to the magic, it's what's not to like, it makes you feel good. Everybody's happy, and it's just, memories of childhood and I don't know, a lot of memories with my kids there and my family, my dad and my mom. And it's just, it makes me happy. And, you get to be a certain age and you kind of think, what am I doing? And why not go when you can? Life is short. So let's do it.
Wow. Yes. Amen. We've been talking about that a lot lately, about, what do you, if not now, when?
Yes, I know. And, if somebody would have told me 6.5 weeks ago that I would be in my RV 2 miles from my house, and listing our home, I would have thought they're out of their mind, really. But, things happen, and I am not in charge. The big guy in the sky is in charge of my life. And so I go with it and trust,
Yep. Absolutely. And then you're very, so people don't know, your life's been a bit crazy. You're trying to move, and that's what you just said. You're in your RV right now recording this because you had to get out of the house.
Yes, I know. And it's kind of, I wanted to tell your audience that I was thinking ahead. So I have Cinderella Castle behind me. It's all like, you got the little Tinkerbell pixie dust in there, and they won't see it, but at least it's there. I'm letting them know it's there.
So you've had a big, obviously, love for Disney growing up. And because really we were here, we want to talk about your cookbook. Your Positively Disney Cookbook. But even before that, you have a whole series of books, Positively Disney.
Yes. Well, what happened is these really extra magical things started happening to us when we were at the parks, like profound. So, for example, when we were at the American Garden Theater, it was 2001, and there was an advertisement on the marquee that Riverdance was good. Riverdance is, the Irish dance troupe. We've seen that. Let's come back. So we did, and our kids were taken with it. They ended up becoming good at it, and that one little show changed because we ended up traveling a lot for 15 years with the kids, and other things were happening as well. So unfortunately, on my very first Disney cruise with our kids, my dad passed away at home, and we knew, that his time could be at any time, but we were advised, go on our trip. And oh my gosh, the cast members, what they did for us in our time of need was outstanding. So these things that were happening to us, I thought, my gosh, they must be happening to other people. And it was my way of thanking the cast members, because how would these cast members even know what they've done to affect your life, And so I thought, well, I'm gonna just see if there's other people out there, which of course there were. And funnily enough, my very first animator I met at an Irish dance competition. And so a Disney animator was there, and I met a couple others that ended up, if you fast forward that about 15 years, ended up being some of my son's professors, who one of my two sons just graduated university a few weeks ago. So it's come full circle. Disney has always been a part of our lives, somehow, some way, in some shape and form. And whenever we traveled, guess what? I would always scout out the Disney stores, and the best Disney store I've ever been in, bar none, is in Dublin, Ireland. It's a 3-story Disney store, and they were very gracious to let me film it and all that. And I put it up, and I remember within 2 hours, they're like 20,000 views, but it reached 38,000 views in a few hours, and then somehow it got taken down because I was not supposed to have so many views. But it was so fun. And Scotland, everywhere we went, and even my husband, when he was traveling the world, he would go to the one in India or Germany or whatever, and he'd bring me stuff back, So he laughs now because he thinks that I'm a bigger Disney fan than him now. But so anyways, the original way I started writing the books is I put out there, I said, hey, if anybody's got something they'd like to share with me, please do so. And that's how it started. And I'm actually working on book 6. And the Positively Disney series are the heartwarming stories about Disney's impact on people's lives. I've interviewed people from 12 different countries, and they're animators and artists and guests and cast members, and from all walks of life and all stories. And it actually, I had the good fortune to hang out with Jack Canfield, who is the co-author of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series a few years back. And he actually endorsed my books. He called me up one day and said, I'd like to endorse your books, and this is what you can say. And I'm like, what?
Oh, that's amazing.
I was pretty excited. Wow. And because you never know if there's a scammer calling from California and unrecognized numbers. I'm glad I answered the phone. But so that's how it progressed. And it's just been wonderful. And then voila, the cookbook came out in November, and I just it has to be about meaning. Like, there has to be meaning behind the recipe. And so of course the stories behind the recipes are just as fabulous as the recipe.
That's fantastic. So the cookbook, you actually have recipes from some pretty iconic people in the Disney sort of stratosphere.
Yeah. So, okay, we could go there. So original Mouseketeers, Sherry and Sharon and Cubby, and Mouseketeer Annette, Funicello and Sharon, and the voices of Goofy, the original Donald Duck, Mickey Mouse. Now there's 2 Mickey Mouse voices, which, you know what? I didn't even know about till I did my cookbook. And he's done a lot. He's actually a very, he's Canadian Greek. So I got a little Canadian in there. And so the voices and the actors, a lot of the actors from Pirates of the Caribbean, Hocus Pocus, Star Wars, Frozen, Aladdin, there's more, but and filmmakers and animators and artists. And
how did you get in touch with these people? How does it happen that you just say, hey, you got a recipe for me?
Got a recipe and a story?
well, it's kind of like that. So, because I knew so many people from doing the regular series, right? I just called them up or emailed them and said, hey, I'm doing this cookbook. And if you want to, share that with your friends, please do so. And you know what? Like in 2 weeks, I had 50 recipes in my email and stories. Yeah, in 2 weeks. But I was like, okay, that's only 50. I need a lot. So I was kind of like, okay, well, how is this all going to go? Because I only decided to do that back in April. And so it was a very fast process. And then I had to cut it off at 110 and the stories behind it. And it was so fun. And it just, word spread, actually. And I did a few cold calls. And for the most part, people were on board. The ones that couldn't were actually filming. So Harrison Ford was filming Indiana Jones. And
okay, wait. Did you cold called Harrison Ford?
Oh, his agent. Oh my, he was filming.
But you talked to a person who's talked to Carrie's laughing at me. But wait. You talked to a person who talked to Harrison Ford?
Oh yeah. And that's funny. Yeah, and so some of the recipes, so Carrie Fisher's brother Todd, I know him pretty well now, and his mom Debbie Reynolds, I got recipes from them. But it was really odd how I got her recipe finally, because we were actually, this is kind of a funny story. So book 5 is the Star Wars edition, so Carrie's story is in there. And I said, hey Todd, I'd love to get some recipes from your mom and Carrie. And for the longest time, we couldn't get a hold of Carrie's cook. And found out later that he got into not the chef business, but another business, the cannabis business. And so we weren't too sure. I mean, it's all legal and legit, but it's like, we were not getting through this guy. So Todd once said, he said, hey, give me a call. So I called because, you ready to record this? So I got all ready, and he told me the family recipe, the secret family recipe, and all the A-listers would have had this recipe. It was at all their parties, all their functions, all their birthdays, all their celebrations, everything. So that was so cool. And
wow.
But yeah, I'm very fortunate to have those kind of pathways to people and people. But something about me is like, to me, it doesn't really matter what you do in life. These people are not their roles, even though they're out there and it's fantastic, their work and stuff like that. Like, they're people like us. They need to eat. They have family members that, pass down recipes through the generations. Those smells from grandma or grandpa or your mom, cooking, like they all bring emotions forward. And actually in November, I was speaking at a conference in Orlando, and I had some of the Pirates guys, the Hocus Pocus guys, Frozen girls, young Elsa and Anna, on stage with me. And it was actually quite an emotional experience for them, talking about the story behind the story. And something that was very neat too is you have to understand, like, as I said, we're all people here. We all have a life path, and sometimes we intersect, which is great. But people are still people. They still have the same, they need to eat. They want their children to grow up and be all right. We still have the same needs, And so I've never really actually gone like fangirlish on anybody, I guess.
That was one of the questions I was going to ask you.
Oh, really?
As you're talking about this and you're saying they're people, and I totally get that. But quite honestly, I'm sitting here thinking, like, I can't imagine sitting next to Harrison Ford eating a hamburger. Like, I just, you know what I mean? Like, I can't picture him in sort of normal day life, but you're right. They all have the same.
Everybody has normal life.
Everybody has a normal life, but, So you've never fangirled? You've never sort of been starstruck or anything about anyone?
No, I think what happens to me is, after I interview them or after I go for lunch or whatever with them, I just kind of sit back and think, oh, wow, this is kind of interesting. It's just a bit different in my life now. And I kind of don't realize how different my life is to what it was until I'm talking to people, that I've known for years. And I'm just like chatting with so-and-so and so-and-so. And they're like, what? And I'm thinking, oh yeah, I guess that sounds a little different, but so for example, let me tell you this is so fun, and I'm going to have you guys guess this too. So and actually I better back up the bus here a bit. So because you're Pixie Dusty podcast, which is perfect for today, because my good friend Margaret Carrie, the original Tinkerbell, it is her 93rd birthday today. Isn't that appropriate?
Oh wow, awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah. And another just little teeny side is the longest flying Tinkerbell from Disneyland. Her name is Gina Rocco, was Gina DeMarco, is actually going to be in book 6. And she's already going to be in the second cookbook. Yes, I spilt the beans.
Oh,
There's going to be a second cookbook. But anyway, so Margaret is such a sweetheart. And we have really connected on kind of a very deep level. And something that I will share with you at the end of this little story about what she asks herself every day. And it's beautiful. And I had it written on a piece of paper I kept in my podcast room, and I still keep it with me because it's so important. But anyways, so Margaret was at the Orlando gig that I was at, and she needed a ride back to Sarasota. So I have my little Volkswagen Bug convertible there at my house there. And I thought, we're going to just go for a fun little drive, to Sarasota, which is like an hour and 15 minutes. And I'd never driven to Sarasota before. I don't think I'd even been there before, actually. But anyways, so I picked Margaret up at the hotel. And what do you ladies think Miss Margaret and I talked about for almost 2 hours? I want you to see what you guess. I asked people this in my presentations. Nobody's guessed it, but I just want you to.
Okay, guess. So this is the original Tinkerbell.
Yes. So she was like 92 and a half, in November.
Wow.
So for almost 2 hours, one way driving.
I can't. I want Carrie. You go first.
I don't know.
I want to say,
anything, I suppose.
Just a guess.
I want to say automobiles.
What do you think, Carrie?
I don't know. Her grandma's chili recipe.
Chili recipe. And Francine, you say automobiles. Guess what?
What?
We did talk about cars. We talked about sports cars because we both are huge sports car people. And and we were talking, comparing vehicles today and the different, add-ons that they have that are so unnecessary. And her favorite car was her blue Ford Mustang, 1964 Ford Mustang. She used to bomb around LA, and that was her favorite one. Yeah, and I was telling her about my Porsche and about different things, and on my Porsche. So people might not know this about me, but the space program is also a huge love of mine. So Disney and the space program, besides animals, it goes hand in hand. And so on my license plate now, I on my Audi, I have the number 2 Disney on it, and on my Porsche, I had. Now you guys tell me what you think it is. It should be easy, but ROCKT. GRL.
Rocket Girl.
Yes. Because I love the space program, and a very good friend of mine is the 2-time shuttle astronaut, and that he actually did. He was one of them that did the forward in book 5 of the Disney Positively Disney series. But you can take that 2 ways, like rocket, kind of rocket.
Yeah.
And Rocket Girl, and it's so funny because most people are like, what does that mean? What is that referring to? And because I love the space program. And so I'm very excited to be able to be closer to my 2 loves. Although my sad part of the story are my kids are going to be left over here.
Oh,
and
no.
I am becoming an empty nester, and I'm emptying the nest myself. So, oh boy, that's a bit of a journey in itself. That's another book. But yeah, so Miss Margaret and I talked about sports cars.
That's interesting.
All the way there.
You would never, Fran guessed, I guess, but a 93-year-old would want to talk about sports cars.
I know, right?
I never thought about sports cars. All I kept thinking was, if you're just getting in the car, you don't really know each other, and you got a 2-hour drive, and she's like 92, maybe you're going to talk about the evolution of a car, but I would never have thought sports cars.
Yeah, Margaret and I actually have known each other for several years. And it's so fun. She's writing the forward for book 6, which is very appropriate since, my Gina is going to, the flying Tinkerbell is going to be in that one. But what I did say I was going to tell you is there is something that Margaret asks herself every single day. And I love it. And it's so meaningful. And she asks herself, have I brought joy to God today? She asks herself that every single day. And you know what? I think she does every single day. She is such a sweetheart. And she's just she's positive. She's got the light. She's one of those people you meet and she's got the light. Yeah.
Oh, I have a bit of a lump in my throat.
Oh, I don't mean to do that. But it's just, it's lovely. That's one thing, being an author of the books and the cookbook. And I've been very fortunate to be able to have conversations that went below the surface with so many people. Gosh, that could be a book in itself, but I wouldn't, because that's just private conversations, right? But it's been fascinating to get to know these people on a very different level than their public know them. And I have to say, I'm very blessed. I am very, very blessed to be able to call Bob Gurr up, and he clears his whole week waiting for me to come for dinner with him, or Musketeer Sherry, she'll take me to her club for lunch, or just these people are just wonderful. They really are wonderful people too. Like I don't allow anybody that feels like they're all that in a bag of chips in my books. Not one. I
love that saying.
But you know exactly what I mean, right?
Yep.
So it's just that something I'm very happy with all the people that are in the books. They're all good people. They're good-hearted. So.
Well, I can tell you, Carrie and I fangirled. We had Bob Gurr on the podcast, and let me tell you, this was like fangirl and beyond. I think, we were big nerds.
He's lovely, though. He's so lovely.
He's such a sweetheart. Such a sweetheart, and he really made us feel it. Well, he tried his best to make us feel at ease, but I think we were still basket cases through the whole interview.
It was pretty cool.
It
was pretty cool. Now, when you talk recipes with people, you're right. You're talking about like their family and where it came from. You've got some pretty cool, like Robert Sherman.
Yeah. So Robbie's actually a friend of mine. It's funny because they get to be friends, these people, anyways. So I've got his dad's recipe and his own recipe in there. And I think it's so fun because, my gosh, the Sherman brothers, it's really, to me, that's old school classic fame. I hate to use the word fame, but you know what I mean? Like that's like real, goes back a long ways, right? And to be, I felt really to be, I felt it really, I was very honored to actually be able to have the recipes and the stories that I have both in the book series and the cookbook. And because it's such an honor, I wanted to do it justice. And I felt very, very responsible to have a product that was platinum, if I may, because I owe it to these people that trusted me with their work, with what's close to their hearts, and so I have not done Robert Sherman's. Oh, by the way, when I am at a conference and I know there's different celebrities that are in my book that are going to be there, I make sure their recipe is done. I've tried it, all this stuff. And so in one of the conventions, there was about, I think 12 or 13 of them. So, oh my gosh, I was cooking up a storm. And,
I was wondering if any, like, if you had some favorites out of the...
Oh, you know what? So I don't know if you've ever had like those, my sister used to send me her children's schools would have those little favorite cookbooks, little coil book of recipes or fundraisers and stuff. So one thing I'll just back up with the favorite recipe thing is people have asked me, well, did you try all of them yet? I'm like, are you kidding me? I only have like how many hours in a day to write, let alone try it. So I had to trust that the recipes I was getting, they were tried and true and good, and they are. And if you would ask me that question a few months ago, I would have said anything that turns out for me is my favorite, because I'm not a chef, I follow a recipe, for the best. But I have to say, one of my favorite recipes is unbelievable. So Anthony Daniels, our C3PO, he gave me an eggplant recipe. Now, I haven't eaten eggplant in 40 years because my mom made it, and it was just the grossest thing in the world. She hasn't eaten eggplant in 40 years either. And she just came to visit me in the middle of my move, and I had bought 2 eggplant because I wanted to make her this recipe and change her mind about eating eggplant, but I didn't get a chance to. So I have to wait till she comes back. But anyways, his recipe, oh my God, I'll never forget getting off the plane. I was at a convention in California in January, and the first thing I did, besides saying hi to my dogs and my kids, that not necessarily in that order, I made the eggplant recipe, and I made enough so I could have some for breakfast, for lunch, and for dinner. Oh, it's so good. I never knew I was going to love eggplant, like never, ever. So yeah, but I love a lot of these. And there's one recipe that I'm going to tell you about that is not normally found in a cookbook, and I'm going to make it, and I'm going to try it. And it's actually dog biscuits.
Oh.
But they're edible. Yeah, no, but because, okay, so they're edible, human consumption. But the person who contributed is Princess Jasmine, Linda Larkin, and she's going to be at a convention I'm at the end of September. So I remember I said I want to make everybody's recipes to try it before. So I'm gonna make hers. And Jafar, Jonathan Freeman's gonna be there, and he's got a pretty elaborate dessert. So I'm gonna be like working hard at making sure that turns out for me. But so I'll be making those.
That's a pretty neat way to kind of go through the recipes, though, right? Like if that you're going to be seeing them at a convention, that you got to do those ones, right?
Oh,
so
you're
right. You don't have all the time in the world to do 110 recipes, but that's a good way to tackle them.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I got to get on top of this one.
I know, and it's so funny because there's some recipes that I had tried that now are going to be regularly on my Thanksgiving dinner table because they are so phenomenal. And you know what else happened with this cookbook? I never knew. I now love vegetables. I was never a big vegetable fan. I mean, I'd eat vegetables, but never really cared for them. But gosh, some of the side dishes I got, they were so good. They were so amazing, and I highly recommend. It's a healthy cookbook, except for like there's parts that are cookies and pies and tarts and stuff like that. But it's 12 sections of delicious things, and it's just fun to be able to try these out. There is one recipe I want to share with you. I don't even know how we're doing for time. See, if maybe I'm talking too much. I don't know.
No, we're good. We're good. We're good. I'm just thinking I got to make some eggplant from C3PO. Oh. Like, how fantastic is that?
I know, right? So one recipe that was my most surprising recipe came from one of the pirates in Pirates of the Caribbean, Trevor Etienne, who is a lovely man, just a real lovely human being. Anyways, it was his mom's recipe, and a good thing I got it when I did, because she has late stage dementia that, she wouldn't even have been able to give this recipe anymore. But this recipe is shark and bake. Shark. And I'm like
shark,
okay.
Shark.
Yeah.
Shark?
From the Caribbean. Yeah. And that's where his family's from. And it's so funny because he was one of the guys on stage, and everybody gave him such a hard time for choosing a recipe like that. They're like, what? Anyway, so I'm like, okay, I cannot disappoint this guy and have him on stage with me, and his recipe is the only one I didn't have. So I called like 5 different Asian markets here, and they're like, no, but they didn't have anything like that. And a few people said, well, isn't that illegal? I said, no, shark fin is, but not shark meat or whatever. So the last guy that I talked to, he goes, oh, just go out and bob for shark. You'll get some. I'm like, what are you talking about? How in the world would I, first of all, what do you mean by bobbing for shark? And how would I know that what I caught was a shark, like, because sharks are different sizes, especially in the Pacific Northwest here. So I'm like, no, I'm not going to go bob for a shark. And it's November, it's cold. Anyways, plus I wouldn't know what I was doing anyways. I never caught a fish in my life except with a Frisbee, which is a true fish story. Anyways, it's true. Anyway, that's another story. But anyway, so I'm like, okay, what can I use? So rockfish, like something that has the same texture. And you know what? Like, so I'm kind of really worried about this because I'm not a massive seafood person. So I'm mixing all these spices that you can buy anywhere. But when you mix them all together, ooh, it's hallelujah moments, because it's like the real Caribbean spices. Very good. And same with Vince Lozano, who was another part of Parts Caribbean, arroz con pollo with tostones. His special dish and adobo is a seasoning that you can buy in a box, but make it from scratch, because when you can get all the different spices that go together to make it, and it's phenomenal. But anyways, that was my strangest recipe that I had. Everything else, was not that was strange, but I mean, it was unusual for me.
It's not normally on everybody's shopping list to pick up some shark.
Yeah.
And shark steak.
Yeah. And one of the things too about the cookbook, because it's all like, family kind of recipes or their own recipes, so you don't need any kind of big equipment. Although there is one recipe, it's actually the battle of the peanut butter ice cream between a couple of the guys from Hocus Pocus. And I'm like, okay, I got to get an ice cream maker. So that's the only thing that you would really need to get is an ice cream maker if you wanted to do that. And I'm looking at ice cream makers, and I decided to go for the Cadillac of ice cream makers that weighs as more than my vacuum cleaner, actually, when it came.
Oh my goodness.
Carried in. I know, right? So I gave them a hard time. I said, this cost me a lot of money, and it came from Italy, and it weighs more than my vacuum cleaner. But it makes ice cream in half an hour. It's so lovely. But the funny thing about that is both those guys were on stage, and so one had a vegan peanut butter ice cream, and the other had a regular peanut butter ice cream. And so Larry Bagby had in Hocus Pocus. He was kind of the bully, kind of one of the bullies. He was the bigger guy bully, and then Tobias Jelnick was the bully with the long blonde hair, and he had the regular peanut butter ice cream recipe. And it was so funny because it was like they sent it in together, the duel of the peanut butter ice creams. And as they get off stage, Larry turns around and says to the audience, yeah, Tobias's would taste better. So he dissed his own. But I mean, I like both of them. And if anybody is vegan, they have a vegan peanut butter ice cream recipe, which just a little note that you don't put coconut milk in the fridge to cool so that you get ice cream quicker, because it gets hard. That's my little cooking tip. Yeah.
You got a coconut ice cube.
I know, exactly, right? So as I said, I mean, I'm not a chef, but I can follow a recipe, and everything's pretty much turned out. Yeah.
That's cool.
That is. And the stories that come with it, and the different people, like I was looking, like Billy D. Williams. You have a recipe from Billy D. Williams.
Yeah, noodle kugel. Like, I'm like, what the heck is that? I had to do it, how to make it. So really tasty. I'd never had it before, but it's noodles and cinnamon, and it's kind of like a bread pudding, but with noodles. So, and the fun thing about it was that he doesn't do anything for anybody. He just doesn't. That's not his thing. But he did for me, and I'm like, yay.
Like, you have Lando Calrissian's noodle recipe. Like,
yeah.
It's so cool. That is...
Yeah. I know.
Wow.
Is that crazy? I know. And then I didn't expect Annette Funicello's recipe. So Musketeer Sherry and Annette always drove to the studio together because back in those days, a lot of the women didn't drive, my grandmother didn't. And so Annette was kind of like a bigger sister, an older sister for Sherry. And but it was Musketeer Sharon, that gave me Annette's recipe, and it was handwritten. I'm like, oh, is this in Annette's handwriting? She goes, no, it's mine. I'm like, okay, that's fine still too.
That's still good.
I know, because I do have some handwritten stuff. So I actually have the handwritten notes. They look like 2 pieces of paper taped in the book of Walt's food that he'd like to eat, that he gave to his housekeeper, Thelma Howard, that she was his housekeeper and cooked for 35 years. But yeah, it's handwritten. So it's super fun. And he spelt steak wrong. It's so funny. I thought, oh yeah, you're just too creative and you're just writing down like off the top of your head. So he spelt steak to eat like a steak that you plunge into a vampire. So that was so cute. But being a former teacher, I pick up stuff like that. And then another recipe. So I'm actually friends with the original Donald Duck, Clarence Nash's daughter. And so I have to go to her house and make Myers lemon pies, because that was her dad's famous pie thing. But he also loved peanut butter cookies. And she gave me his handwritten recipe card of the cookies, and he always carried a Donald Duck stamp with him, and you could see it stamped as like my favorite cookie recipe on there. But isn't that fun?
That is awesome.
That is.
I know, to have that. And then a few of the animators and Imagineers, they gave me their recipes illustrated. So it's like I got art in there too that I wasn't expecting. So yeah, it was just super fun. It was, these unexpected delights really for me to get for the cookbook.
Wow. The joy that all that stuff brings. It's just, and you can hear it. Like, you love all this stuff, and the people, and how kind and generous of them to share this stuff with you, and for you to put it out there for everyone. It's just incredible.
One thing, I am working officially with Feeding America to give partial proceeds to Feeding America, because I just wanted to be able to help, I'm a real proponent of service, and really believe that we are here to serve one another in our time and our talents. And so I'm very grateful that I can write a paragraph or two and then be able to write these books that, with partial proceeds going to different people,
I think it's fantastic. And such a great charity as well.
Thank you.
Kimberly, all of this stuff. So where can everybody buy your books, your cookbooks, your original series, everything, I'm assuming, available on Amazon?
Yes. That seems to be the easiest, really. I won't open up the can of worms too much, but if somebody wants a signed copy, they can also find me on my website, positivelydisney.com, reach out to me that way. Or through my publicist, and but you can, Amazon, anywhere. You can also, if somebody wants to support their local bookstore, they can reach out to me, and I can supply them with some books or whatever. So
I will make sure that I have all the links in the show notes to your website and to your books on Amazon. We'll make sure we have that as well. Now.
Sure.
Kimberly, this has been so much fun, but before we let any of our guests go, we have to ask them to share some pixie dust, something that brought you some joy this week, anything that brought a smile to your face. What was your pixie dust this week?
Absolutely. Well, this was one of those, one of the most craziest weeks of my life, I would have to admit, because we were on the tail end of getting every single thing out of our house by Monday night. And despite that, and all my stuff was packed and put on pods, and, it's all those little niggly things at the end that you're, trying to figure out what you're going to do with them. But anyways, so I had gone out to pick something up, and I got back. And there's like the water jug that we, put water in the water dishes with, the dogs, filled with roses. And it was just in this huge chaos there were roses for me from my husband. So that was nice.
Oh, that's awesome.
That is so nice. Carrie, how come our pixie dust never sounds like that?
No.
Oh, well,
That's
I don't know.
incredible.
I didn't expect it, and I thought it was so funny because it's like this old jug, that I use for putting water in the dog dishes, and he was just improvising because I really, I had nothing in my house. Like everything was packed.
Everything was gone. That's so terrific.
But you still needed to be given some flowers, so you figured it out.
Yeah.
Oh.
I
Kimberly,
appreciated that.
That is so fantastic. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you about your books and your stories. You have such great stories to tell.
Well, thank you. It was so fun meeting you guys. My gosh, and chatting with you. I really hope I get to meet you like in real life, like face to face sometime, because that's something I try to do too. And anybody that I interviewed by, or I interview, or whatever, if they're in the same vicinity, I always make the effort to meet them face to face. And then now moving to Orlando, it's going to be not so hit and miss anymore. It'll be a little easier. So
for sure.
That brings me joy. Too, because I love people, and I find it wonderful to be able to actually meet you guys and give you a hug. I'm a hugger. But, so,
well, next
anyway.
time we're
so
in Walt
much.
Disney World for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds great. Thank you
good
so
luck
much,
with
you guys.
the move and everything.
Oh,
And we'll connect with you again for sure. When the next book comes out, we want to hear all about it.
Okay, sounds good.
Carrie, that was fun.
I'm hungry.
I'm still thinking about Harrison Ford with a hamburger or something, but
it's funny. Like, I know I laughed, but we probably should have maybe explained a little bit your intense obsession with
like the minute Ford. She said, and then Harrison Ford, and she just talks about him like, he's just like, Joe that works down at the car dealership, like, and then Harrison Ford, and I'm just like, so that was kind of funny, but I'm kind of hungry, and I'm thinking
it sounds like an amazing book.
Yeah, you know me, like I'm not one to buy those kind of books and stuff like that, but I'm kind of thinking I want to try the eggplant from C-3PO.
I love eggplant, so I'm ready to give that a whirl. So
I wouldn't even know, like, I don't even know what eggplant looks like, truth be told, but it just, C-3PO gave the recipe. You kind of gotta think this is...
And it sounds neat, like, with what you said, like the handwritten notes and all that stuff, like that kind of just pluses it up, right? Like, it's not just, their stories and their recipes. There's some things like that in there too, which is really cool.
Yeah, for sure. And when you think about, like, it's funny because at the beginning of the interview, we're talking about the cookbook, but we never mentioned food for like the first 10 or 15 minutes because it was so much about the stories and the people, and it's so great. Yeah, it's really exciting. So we'll have all the links in the show notes. Mm-hmm. Cool. All right, Carrie.
Yep.
Here we go.
Pixie dust time.
Pixie dust time. Pixie dust time.
PD. Pixie dust time.
I feel like, I'm going to actually we got to, You go ahead. What's your pixie dust, Carrie?
Well, my pixie dust is a pretty easy one, I think, for me this week.
Oh,
how do you like that?
I like that because
so
I didn't even ask you before we started, Carrie. You got pixie dust, so I'm
so
assuming.
My pixie dust is that on a couple of days ago, I guess on the weekend, I hung out with some friends from high school, and it was sort of a last minute thing. I was going out for breakfast with Glenda, my buddy, which I've mentioned before, and who also listened to our Fast Five, and she said, like, oh my goodness, like that's probably our episode with like the most comments ever. What were you guys thinking? You guys are crazy.
And that was the one you were like, I don't think we should even publish this.
Anyway,
we should
so
just
I was going for brekkie with Glenda because we haven't had breakfast in a long time. And she had organized for us to meet with a couple of guys that we went to high school with.
So
we went in for breakfast, and then we went for a walk down where we grew up, in the south end of our town. And we walked and chatted, and, we connect and see each other a little bit on Facebook. We see the one friend once in a blue moon when he comes to town. And then the other friend, we hadn't seen in a long time, quite a few years. So it was a little reunion, and we chatted and we reminisced and we laughed a lot. And we spent a couple of hours walking around and just having a good time. That's so
fun. And walking around like where you grew up, that's kind of... Like, it's already kind of nostalgic being there, and then to be there with people that were there with you.
Yeah, for sure. It was really good. So it was nice to connect, and it was a really good pixie dust moment.
You know what? And I completely forgot all about it. And I remember you telling me what a great time you had, and I saw the picture, and then it never dawned on me that, that was your pixie dust. Mm-hmm. That's good pixie dust, Carrie. That was good pixie dust.
Didn't require any Amazon shopping or sticker warehouses.
I know. Look at you. She's expanding her horizons of pixie dust.
I'm leaving the house now. I'm gonna find some more organic
I'm going
pixie
outside.
Dust. I'm going out. Come and find me, pixie dust. I'm ready for you.
Oh my gosh, Carrie, that's too funny.
What's your pixie dust?
Well, now you're going to say, like, I'm kind of copying you, but I'm not. I swear I'm not. But we started our gradual hybrid return to office. Mm-hmm. So we're doing, like, 1 day a week for the next little bit. And as much as I dread going into the office, I kind of liked it. Just like, if my boss was listening, I'm not going in 5 days a week. Like, get that out of your head. But it was nice to... It was so nice to see everybody, like, and quite honestly, Carrie, to put on pants. It's one of those reminders of, so I wore jeans, and these are like the big jeans that I bought because I knew my old jeans wouldn't fit me. And it's kind of a reminder when I'm sitting on the couch that I need to move some more because I'm not buying any bigger ones. But it was nice to kind of get dressed to go out. And I did not wear a stitch of makeup. And I think I said this before on the podcast too. I have decided no more. If you had told 15-year-old Francine that she would ever leave the house without makeup, I would never have believed you. I would have said you were lying. Now, I've just embraced it. Since COVID, I've just embraced it. This is me, like it or lump it.
I like it.
Right? I'm just over it. Which kind of is I have all this makeup upstairs. I don't know what to do with now, but I'm over it. No makeup.
On your gone to work, on the day you went to work, we were chatting on Facebook, and we were talking about work clothes, and I told you about the work pants that I have. They're really, really comfy and I'm sure we've talked about this before, and if we haven't, I don't know how we didn't. But now after COVID, there's like dress pants that are like dress pants, but like they're stretchy and very, very comfy. They're as close to as wearing pajama bottoms, but looking like you're wearing dress pants, and they are dress pants to work. So I messaged you and sent you some links of pants like that where I bought my pants, and then you messaged back and you're like, yeah, I'll look it up. Maybe I'll order some. And then I said, I just spent $100. I just went on the site to find the pants to send you a link.
And you ended up buying a bunch.
And I bought a pair of like jean capris because I could use a new pair, and I bought a bunch of shirts that because they had something like that was on discount, and then they had some of their other I needed just some plain tees and whatever. So yeah, I spent like $100.
Oh my gosh!
Going online quickly while I'm at work for 2 seconds to find a link so I can send it to you while I remember, because otherwise 3 weeks from now I still wouldn't have sent you the link. And then clickety click 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 click.
It's so easy to do. I know, and I'm embracing that. So my jeans are only if we end up going 2 days a week, I need more outfits. So yes, I'm going to embrace those stretchy pants that
they're so
that you
comfortable.
sent me. Yeah, because it's just what I think
they're not
everybody's changed.
Pants. They are legit work. They are legit.
They look like
pants.
dress pants.
They're
right.
They're made of the material. They're just very comfortable. They're not stretch pants. They're not casual. They're not casual. They are dress pants for work. But they are the comfiest things ever.
Excellent. So I'm going to order some of those. But yeah, it was nice to see people in person and, just be amongst
Just be
the
like,
people.
hello. Is that you?
I can tell you, I was not productive at all. I spent the majority of the day chit-chatting with people. I was late for every from a work perspective, it was no fun. I was late for every single meeting because I had to run from room to room, that stuff. I wasn't very productive because I was just chatting with everybody. But it was nice to see them.
That's awesome. Now you felt a little bit of joy that I feel when I go to my in-person job.
Yes, exactly. But I'm not back there for another 7 or 8 days. Like we're really spreading it out. But yeah.
Wow.
But anyway, Carrie,
that's cool. I like that.
So this was a fun one, and we've got some fun stuff coming up in the next couple of podcasts. But I want to remind everybody, please, to leave us a rating and review if you haven't yet. We're loving them. And yeah, tell somebody.
Pixie Does Fan on Instagram.
Well, we're yes, and you can find Muppet Crazy there too.
No,
but just don't send her a message because she doesn't check her messages on Instagram.
I sometimes do. But you'll put little voice clips on the Instagram story so that you can be reminded of our podcast, and those are kind of fun. They're little snippets. You pick little funny things.
I try. I try.
Leave us reviews, but also on Instagram you can be reminded.
And share the podcast with people if you don't mind. And, take a picture of yourself listening to it and tag us in it. Let us see where you're listening from. Well, thank you guys for listening. And till next week, Carrie, we'll be back. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to the Pixie Dust Fan Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the episode.
Make sure you're following us on your favorite podcast player so you'll get a new episode every week. And find us on social media too. We'd love to hear from you.
Till next time, remember, you are never too old to be young. Chase your dreams and design your own happily ever after.